Electric Wizard are one of my favorite bands, especially in the doom metal, stoner doom category. I love everything this band has put out, even from their latest release in 2017. I've also seen this band live in 2019, which I was very altered for. But no, I love this band so much. Stoner doom, just super fuzzy. Electric Wizard is a 90s English stoner doom band, a very genre-defining band, a very excellent discography. I love all their stuff, so I thought it'd be a fun video to rank all their albums, especially after doing that last Metallica one, which I got torched for. So I'm going to start with Electric Wizard's debut in 1994, the self-titled album. This is an excellent record, very good, a very genre-defining record as well. Amazing cuts off this, especially with an intro like Stone Magnet. I'll be honest though, compared to later releases, this definitely doesn't hold up compared to what the band later does with some future albums, but amazing album regardless. I think this is a great Electric Wizard album. I actually believe this is a top of A tier record. Again, doesn't hold up to the other albums this band later does put out, but still a solid cut in the band's discography. Some of my favorite tracks are Mountains of Mars, Stone Magnet, and Devil's Bride. Next up, we have 1997's Come My Fanatics. This album really proves how evil a band could be. Just such an overall improvement of the first record. So much heavier, so much more evil, and just the riffs are so amazing, especially with that first song. It literally drags you into hell. So heavy. We also get an atmospheric track on this album, which kind of reminds me of that song off Mob Rules, the E150 or whatever it's called. But still really cool. Just an awesome sophomore album. Really, really excellent. I will say my one gripe with this album, though, is on the song Son of Nothing. There's like this dripping sound throughout like most of the song, which is like a little annoying. But other than that, fantastic album. This album definitely deserves a S tier ranking. Some of my favorite tracks off this are Return Trip, Wizard in Black, and Son of Nothing, even though I said I have a problem with Son of Nothing. Amazing riff and just such a good song. If only it didn't have that dripping noise, but excellent record. Next up, we have 2000's Dopethrone. Fantastic album. A genre-defining record right here. This completes the unholy trilogy that is the first 3 Electric Wizard albums. Every album they put out in these first 3 records just keeps one-upping the one after it. Even though the first 3 albums they put out are very good and excellent, this album just, oh my god, Dopethrone. Nothing really has to be said about this record. One of the greatest stoner doom metal albums of all time, maybe the best of all time. Excellent double LP, amazing cover art, an extremely game-changing evil release. Some of my favorite cuts off this are, and my favorite Electric Wizard song in general is I the Witchfinder. And of course, you know, how could I not bring up Funeralopolis and the title track Dopethrone. Every song on this album is excellent. Amazing double LP. 2000's Dopethrone. S tier. Next up, we have 2002's Let Us Pray. This is the 4th Electric Wizard album. Another great album, but in my opinion, the riffs don't really hold up compared to other Electric Wizard records. I've seen people actually rank this album pretty high, which is cool because I'm glad this band has such a strong discography that there's no defining bad album or defining, like, you know, best album. I really love when a band has a discography like that. But in my opinion, this is one of the weaker albums in the band's discography. And the reason I'm saying that is just because I feel like the riffs don't hold up to earlier and later albums, and not the most memorable songs off this record, but still a very fun listen. I love playing this album. It's a hard follow-up from Dopethrone, but still a fantastic Electric Wizard release. And for that, I'm going to put this album in the bottom of B tier. Some of my favorite tracks off this are Master of Alchemy, Priestess of Mars, and The Outsider. Next up, we have 2004's We Live. This is a very interesting album in the band's discography. I enjoy this album quite a lot, but unfortunately doesn't really hold up compared to later and earlier releases for me personally. But I have seen this album ranked so high, and high to the point where a lot of people will say this is Electric Wizard's best release. I just personally can't see it. It is a fantastic doom metal album. I love how angry the vocals are on this one too. It really adds something that I think is a really cool addition to Electric Wizard's sound and music. But unfortunately, some of the riffs and songs off this one aren't too memorable to me. Still a great listen every time I spin this one, but when comparing to the record after this, I really feel like this doesn't hold up. But still, a fantastic album and definitely worth it. Now, I just want to say and preference this whole tier list thing, all right? Every album in this should be at least like S or A, at least. Maybe even two of them should just be on A, but, I don't want to do that. I feel like that's kind of boring. So I do want to at least spread it out to the point where we have S, A, and B. I wouldn't put anything under that. And B is still very, very solid, still fantastic. But this is how I rank them. Pretty much all these albums, I don't know what your definition of S tier and A tier are, but most of these records should be in S tier. But just to make the video interesting and to give some kind of degree of separation, we're gonna rank these kind of like S, A, and B. And We Live is a fantastic record, but I do think this fits very well in my opinion of what is a B tier album with this band. You guys really scarred me with the whole Metallica tier list. Got me explaining my things now. So my favorite tracks are, of course, the killer title track, We Live, along with Saturn's Children and The Sun Has Turned Black. Next up, we have, I believe, the first Electric Wizard song I ever heard was off this album, 2007's Witchcult Today. What is there to say about this album that already hasn't been said? One of the greatest doom metal albums of all time. Even though some of the songs feel like they might blend together a little too much, every song still has a way of really being defining in its own way and very much standing out in the album's track list. Just a fantastic album. Witchcult Today, the title track, is just so unholy. One of the greatest albums the band has ever put out, and some of the best material this band's ever written is on this album. Can easily be this band's best release, but I am going to put this in S tier, right under Dopethrone. Some of my favorite tracks off this album are Satanic Rites of Drugula, one of the coolest song names ever. Of course, the title track, Witchcult Today, and of course, the classic, The Chosen Few. Next up, we have 2010's Black Masses. A very consistently good album that has a really cool psychedelic closer that kind of wraps everything up. In my opinion, the band's best vocals on an album. Really, really solid stuff. Maybe it might not be the band's heaviest, but just a great solid release. This album might not be my favorite, but still a classic. Very good release. Black Masses. I believe this album deserves a nice spot in A tier. Some of my favorite tracks are Black Mass, Venus in Furs, and Scorpio Curse. Next up, we have 2014's Time to Die. Although this album doesn't really bring anything new to the table, I do believe this is a slight improvement over the last album they put out. This is a really solid album, actually, and the track Incense for the Damned is one of the coolest songs about weed I've ever heard in my life. Just an amazing riff, really cool, weird, evil, psychedelic intro to that song as well. A lot of the other songs off this album do hold up. I really love the material on this one, but honestly, not their best. Not their best, but not their worst. A pretty solid album, good material. That's why I'm going to put this in A tier. Some of my favorite tracks on this: Incense for the Damned, Lucifer's Slaves, and the title track, Time to Die. The next album they put out is in 2017 and is their latest release. Hopefully they put out something new in the near future. The latest Electric Wizard album we have currently is Wizard Bloody Wizard. I feel like this album gets like way too much hate. I see a lot of people really not liking this album. And I do have a few things to say about like some issues with this record. So Wizard Bloody Wizard is a very interesting album in terms of, you know, looking at the whole discography of this band. So we're going into this album with a lineup change, and this is also like the shortest Electric Wizard album. This is surprisingly only a single LP, and I know the band went into this album with more like traditional songwriting, and this is definitely the most accessible Electric Wizard album, and, you know, dare I say it, the most easy listening, especially someone who isn't super into doom metal. This album might be easier to get into compared to some of the earlier stuff the band has put out. I do feel like this album is almost a de-evolution of the band. Some of the stuff that the band has slowly evolved into songwriting-wise has kind of been stripped away for this more bluesy, traditional, almost like blue cheer songwriting, which is very cool and very awesome, and you can hear some of those influences in there, but some of the songwriting doesn't really hold up. Of course, See You in Hell, like, I think rips, is an amazing song, like really, really just heavy, awesome. But even though this album is just one LP, there very much is a B-side to this album. I think the quality definitely drops off once you enter the B-side of Wizard Bloody Wizard. But I think this is a good album. You know, it's not terrible, but it is good. Necromania is also a fun song off this, but I don't know. I do think it's a little overhated. I'm not crazy about the cover art also. I think it's a little I know a lot of people praise it. I'm just not super into it. I just love the super psychedelic drawn artwork that the band has put out with earlier releases that are very like iconic in the whole doom metal community. But because of that, I'm gonna put this album in B tier. Some of my favorite tracks are See You in Hell, Necromania, and Hear the Sirens Scream. This has been my Electric Wizard tier list ranking. What would you like to see in the next Electric Wizard album? Would you like them to keep kind of experimenting with especially the stuff they did on Wizard Bloody Wizard and just keep kind of trying new stuff? Or would you like them to more stick with a traditional stoner doom metal sound that they pretty much established with those first 3 albums? Definitely let me know in the comments what you think about what a future Electric Wizard album should sound like. Also, how right am I? How wrong am I? Again, this is just my opinion, so let me know in the comments and I'll read them and cry. But thank you guys so much for checking this video out. There'll be plenty more tier list rankings in the future. Also, I have a ton of videos you can check out on my channel, and of course, you know, we're streaming on Spotify. Disturbing the Priest is a podcast that you can listen to on the go. It's not only a video thing. It's very accessible. I'm having so much fun with this. We have a lot of interviews lined up. We have a lot of interviews for you to already check out. Also discussion videos and some of my earlier stuff. Just want to thank you guys for the support I've gotten recently. It's just been a ton of fun, and I just love doing stuff like this so much. And so hopefully I'll be doing more tier list and just ranking videos in general. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.
It's death! I've just seen death!